I have to tell you and reiterate that we are very concerned by the PRC's provocative military activity near Taiwan.
Tension certainly is growing between China and Taiwan, and that in turn is prompting a new debate about whether the U.S. needs a new policy approach to prevent China from making a move on Taiwan, an act that could start a wider war in Asia and between the U.S. and China specifically.
As we've said, the activity is destabilizing, it risks miscalculation, and it has the potential to undermine regional peace and stability.
China, of course, considers Taiwan a breakaway province that should be made part of China.
台湾问题纯属中国内政，不容任何外来干涉。
That has been China's position for a long time, though beyond rhetoric, it hasn't taken steps to actually forcibly swallow up Taiwan. In the last year or so, though, and particularly in the last few months, China has been acting more like a country that might use its growing and increasingly sophisticated military to move on Taiwan and attempt to force it to unify. China has sent repeated flights of its military aircraft near Taiwan, including many in areas Taiwan considers part of its air defense perimeter. The flights have been growing both larger in number and more frequent. There have also been stepped-up Chinese naval actions, and recently satellite photos showed China building up its 3 air bases closest to Taiwan. This obviously concerns Taiwan, but it's also of direct concern to the U.S. In fact, it's caused some analysts to argue that it's time for the U.S. to abandon the approach it's taken in addressing Taiwanese concerns. That approach is called strategic ambiguity. Strategic ambiguity means that while the U.S. provides military equipment and some military training to Taiwan, it's never said explicitly whether it would or would not come to Taiwan's defense if it were attacked by China. That's been the case for some 4 decades now. The rationale behind strategic ambiguity has been that it creates, on the one hand, enough fear in China's mind that an attack on Taiwan would bring an American military response that China will be reluctant to move, while on the other hand, not giving Taiwan such a flat assurance America would come to its rescue that it does something too bold and reckless and brings on the very fight the U.S. is trying to avoid. Now, though, some are arguing that the time for strategic ambiguity has ended and that the growing threat from China calls instead for strategic clarity. That is, these voices argue the U.S. should make it clear it will come to Taiwan's defense. Why? Well, the argument goes China is a different country now than it was 4 decades ago. It's far stronger militarily and much more assertive in international affairs. Moreover, U.S. actions in recent years in places such as Afghanistan and Syria raised doubts internationally about whether the U.S. will stick up for its friends. Under those circumstances, it's argued, China might become reckless and miscalculate American resolve by thinking it could move on Taiwan without consequence. And the way to head off such Chinese thinking is to be clear, not ambiguous. President Biden caused a diplomatic stir a few days ago when he suggested at a town hall meeting that he actually is moving away from strategic ambiguity. Asked whether the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense if it were attacked, he said yes, there's a commitment to do that. Later, though, the White House walked back that comment.
There is no change in our policy. Our defense relationship with Taiwan is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act.
Still, China was quite unhappy with that Biden comment, which just shows that moving away from strategic ambiguity to strategic clarity would make already tense relations with China even worse, and some fear Taiwan would think it has a kind of blank check to be as provocative with China as it would like. So put this debate on the growing list of China issues the Biden administration has to tackle.